Okay, when you think of the Great Gatsby, you probably picture the glitz, right? The wild parties, the champagne, the doomed romance of the Roaring Twenties. But what if that's all just window dressing? What if F. Scott Fitzgerald was actually writing a warning, a prophecy about a dream we're still chasing today? Well, let's pull back the curtain on Gatsby's great illusion. Ah, the green light. This has got to be one of the most famous lines in all of American literature. And it just perfectly nails that feeling, doesn't it? That feeling of reaching for something that's just out of your grasp. You can see it, you can almost touch it, but it keeps slipping away. That's Jay Gatsby in a nutshell. And you could argue that's the dream itself. So that brings us to the big, provocative question. What if the whole idea of the American dream was a sham from the very beginning? I mean, this book really makes you wonder if that promise that you can be anything, you can reinvent yourself, you can climb to the top with nothing but grit, was ever actually real for most people. And listen to this. This isn't just some stuffy old literary debate. Nope. Jump forward almost a century, and economists today are using a term called the Gatsby curve. And yes, it's named after this book. Basically, the curve shows a really stark connection. The more inequality you have in a society, the harder it is for people to climb that economic ladder. So the dream literally gets further away. It's crazy, right? It just goes to show you this book from 1925 is holding up a mirror to our world right now. All right, so to really get what Fitzgerald was talking about, we have to go back in time. Let's take a trip to Gatsby's world, the 1920s jazz age. We're talking huge fortunes, parties that never end, but also these massive invisible social walls all playing out on Long Island, New York. Now, what's fascinating is that the main fight here isn't really rich versus poor. It's a civil war among the rich. You've got two camps. Over in East Egg, that's the old money crowd, folks like Tom Buchanan. They inherited everything, they're snobby, and they know they're at the top. Then you've got West Egg. This is the new money, the people who made their fortunes themselves, like our guy Jay Gatsby. They're seen as loud, a bit tacky, and they're practically begging for the old money folks to accept them. And caught in the middle of all this are our key players. First, there's Nick Carraway. He's telling us the story, our eyes and ears on the ground. Then, of course, you have the man himself, Jay Gatsby, the mysterious millionaire throwing these insane parties for, well, one very specific reason. And that reason is Daisy Buchanan. She's Nick's cousin, the golden girl from the old money world. And finally, there's her husband, Tom, who is pretty much the poster boy for arrogant, cruel entitlement. So the whole story basically goes down over one single tragic summer. It starts with a spark of hope, a reunion, but it quickly spirals into a massive confrontation. But the real gut punch isn't just the deadly car crash. It's what happens after. That's when we see the brutal, ugly truth of this world. Some people get to make the mess, and other people have to pay for it. So you're probably wondering, how did Gatsby get all this cash anyway, and so fast? Well, here's the dirty little secret the old money crew suspected all along. He was a bootlegger. Yep, selling illegal booze during Prohibition. And he was mixed up with some seriously shady characters, like Meyer Wolfsheim, a guy who literally fixed the World Series. It shows you that Gatsby's whole glamorous dream, it was built on a pile of dirty money. Okay, so this is where we get to the real heart of what Fitzgerald was trying to say. All the parties, the giant house, the stacks of money. It looks incredible, right? It's a huge, glittering show. But if you scratch just below the surface, you find, well, a whole lot of nothing. Just emptiness. Our narrator, Nick, just nails this feeling. He says he's both enchanted and repelled. And you get it, right? On one hand, he's totally captivated by all the glamour and energy. But on the other, he's kind of sickened by how fake it all is. I mean, think about it. The parties are massive, but half the people there don't even know who Gatsby is. It's all just shallow connections and a kind of joy that feels totally hollow. And this really shows you the moral black hole at the very top. Fitzgerald calls people like Tom and Daisy careless. He says they smash up things and people and then just retreat back into their vast carelessness or their money, whatever, and let other people clean up the mess. Their wealth isn't just a comfort, it's a shield that lets them get away with anything. And then there's Gatsby's famous line. When Nick tells him you can't repeat the past, Gatsby just scoffs. Can't repeat the past? Why, of course you can. And that, right there, is his biggest, most tragic flaw. He thinks his money is a time machine. He doesn't just want Daisy now.
He wants to literally wipe out the last 5 years and go back to an idealized past. It's this beautiful, powerful, and completely delusional idea. But here's the thing. Fitzgerald wasn't just taking shots at a few rich characters. He was doing something much bigger. He was diagnosing a kind of sickness in the American soul. And what's wild is that his diagnosis turned out to be shockingly accurate.
I mean, just think about the phrase, the American dream. We talk about it like it's been around forever, right? Since the founding of the country. But get this, the term didn't even become popular until 1931. And here's the real mind bender. When the historian James Truslow Adams coined it, he was using it to describe a hope that was already dying in the middle of the Great Depression. The term was literally born from failure, not hope.
And Fitzgerald, he saw it all coming, way before anyone else. Back in 1927, right at the peak of all that Jazz Age excess, he gave this interview and basically said, "Just you wait, this whole party is going to end." While everyone else was popping champagne, he was predicting a total collapse. Apparently, the reporter thought he was nuts, just totally hilarious. Well, guess who got the last laugh? Because just 10 days after his final story on the topic came out, Wall Street crashed. October 1929. The Great Depression began. His prophecy didn't just come true, it came true with horrifying speed. It's incredible. He even seems to predict the exact words we use today to talk about this stuff. You know, when we talk about the 1% and the 99%, that whole idea, that struggle between the tiny elite at the top and everyone else trying to get by, that was his whole world. And check out this quote from another one of his stories, written just before the crash. He says, "The dream is, the story they are told, it happens to one, not to the 99. He's spelling it out for us. He's saying the American dream is sold to everybody, but it's really a lottery ticket. One person wins big and the other 99 are just left wanting." So, after all that, the parties, the lies, the broken dreams, the scary predictions, what's the big takeaway here? What are we supposed to get from The Great Gatsby today?
Well, it really boils down to a few key things. First, the American dream, from its very inception, was tied up with failure and disappointment. Second, chasing money for its own sake can leave you totally empty and, frankly, careless. Third, those class lines, they're real, and they are incredibly hard to cross, no matter how much money you make. And finally, the whole book was basically a prophecy. A society built on illusions is going to come crashing down.
And that brings us to maybe the most haunting final line in all of literature. "So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past." It's just such a perfect, devastating image, isn't it? We're all in that boat, rowing as hard as we can toward that green light, toward the future. But the current of the past, our history, our class, where we come from, it's just too strong, always pulling us back. So that leaves us with one last question to chew on. Here we are, almost a century later, with economists literally using the Gatsby curve to map out our own inequality. So, are we still in that boat? Are we still spending all our energy chasing a dream that, just maybe, is already behind us?